Hi, I'm Curt Doty with RealmIQ, my AI consultancy, and this is our podcast, RealmIQ Sessions, where we talk about everything AI with international AI leaders and AI founders. So please give it a follow or subscribe. And today's guest is Oscar-winning Scott Ross. In 1992, he founded, along with James Cameron and Stan Winston, Digital Domain. They garnered multiple Academy Award nominations, receiving their first Oscar for Titanic, little known movie. That success was followed by a second Oscar for What Dreams May Come and a third for The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Scott has worked with the who's who of film directors such as Cameron, Bay, Fincher, Howard, Scorsese, Coppola, the Coen brothers, Spielberg, Kurosawa, Jackson, Salas, and generally has nice things to say about them. He's also played a significant role in the worldwide advertising industry and has garnered dozens of Clio Awards and numerous Cannes Golden Lions. Scott is a member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, the Oscars, and the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, the Emmys. He's also worked on 100 of the world's largest special effects films and has lectured extensively about the creative process, content, and technology in over 30 countries around the world. He has a new book out, Upstart, The Digital Film Revolution from T2 to Titanic. Go. Welcome, Scott. In full disclaimer, I did work for you for a blip on your timeline many years ago. Pleasure to have you here, sir.
Good to see you after so many years. How long has it been, Curt?
God, at least 20, I hate to say. At least, but
Yeah, probably.
time moves quickly in this town, but I've been tracking you and following you and everything that you're doing, and so much admiration and respect for your career. And this is a podcast about AI, like I just said, and here you are, pioneer in special effects in an industry that has been reluctant to embrace AI for many reasons, union strikes, writers guilds,
Fear.
deep fakes, fear,
Fear.
all those things. And meanwhile, the rest of the world has embraced it and moved on in business and are using it. But I think that, and pardon the Titanic pun, I think iceberg is starting to melt. And Hollywood is starting to figure it out, and actually some major deals with James Cameron, getting into it. So what are your thoughts being, having your kind of lens and point of view from, decades of embracing technology, right? And to me, this is just another technology. So what are your thoughts about AI
Well,
and
first of
film?
all, to me, thanks for what you said, but to me, AI is not just another technology. It is a game changer at the highest level. And it's not like all of the other technologies that preceded it. It's an agent as opposed to a technology. And the good news for me in many ways is that since I'm no longer really actively employed in the visual effects business, I can actually tell you the truth, as opposed to most of the people that you might speak to that are gainfully employed in the visual effects industry and are scared to death about what AI might do and are unwilling to really be honest about what the future might look like. For example, a good example of that is there are a bunch of software companies now that are, quote, embracing AI, but for better or for worse, I don't think they can look that far into the future. So like right now, they're saying things like it's incredibly impactful and wonderful and helpful, and it makes our lives easier, et cetera. But, if you look down the road, maybe 5 years, maybe less, because it happens so quickly now, it is really a transformative technology that will change so many things, the least of which is visual effects. And in the many changes that will take place, many of them will be incredibly helpful. but some of them will be so disruptive that the industries and businesses that are disrupted by them might go the way of dinosaurs.
Yeah, let's talk about disruption because Hollywood's gone through its own disruption, regardless of AI, and certainly the television industry is going through disruption, the streamers. So there's consolidation, there's shrinkage, there's mergers and acquisitions. There's less films being made, there's less TV shows being made. We're sitting on a mountain of content that's streaming, and the consumer has so many choices. So it's great for the consumers, right? But there's this downward pressure of the studios to make more content, but now, more cost efficiently because budgets are shrinking, competition is increasing, and enter AI into that equation and the ability, hopefully, that seasoned filmmakers and showrunners and producers and editors will realize that if they embrace these tools, and they're starting to, that they can reach some of these, smaller budget goals, but with even more fantastic results. What do you think about that disruption and point of view in terms of the hope for the?
Well, let's look at it. Let's look at it in phases. So, the first phase right now, especially let's look at the visual effects perspective. From the visual effects perspective, the first phase is interesting because it should be able to help and curtail waste and make things happen more quickly. But once we move out of that, then I think we lose a lot of jobs. I would go so far as to say 75% of the people that are employed in visual effects today will be thrown to the wayside because artificial intelligence will wind up being able to take their jobs. So let's look at visual effects for a second. So for a long while, visual effects were being done in 1 to 3 or 5 shops here in the United States. And then as costs started increasing and the demand for higher quality and more visual effects. So to give you an example, when we did Terminator 2, I think there was 100 shots or less, 80 shots in Terminator 2. Now you can move to a film where, let's say, the Marvel Universe, where there are thousands of shots, right? So given the desire, the need, and a lot of that also has to do with global box office, and we could talk about that. But they were always looking, the visual effects companies, and more importantly, the producers and the motion picture studios were looking for less expensive ways to be able to do the work. And so visual effects companies, rightfully so, decided to look at offshoring a bunch of their facilities in areas where the cost of living was considerably less. So India comes to mind, China comes to mind. And so, you can look at the big visual effects companies today, and they have offices in 3, 4, 5 other countries that are less costly than doing the work, let's say in London or in Los Angeles. So what's going to happen there, I think, is that all of those lesser tasks that are being done in India, let's say, they will go away because they'll be able to be done by artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence will slowly eat, the visual effects community from the bottom up. The further up you get up the chain one goes, the more, quote, creative as opposed to just process oriented that it becomes. And so over a period of time, I think ultimately artificial intelligence, generative AI eats those positions as well, because, we're at the early stages of artificial intelligence and we're seeing outrageous quality. Now, albeit the quality that we're seeing of the AI work in visual effects, you're not really seeing under the hood. You don't realize how many iterations it's taken. That's right. You don't know. It's like you'll see a trailer and it'll say it was totally done by AI, but how long did it take? Because you had to constantly slap the artificial intelligent agent across the face and say, "No, you stupid fool, not that way." Right. But as you and I both know, artificial intelligence gets smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter, and it does it very quickly.
Yeah.
So the mistake that it made a week ago is not making that mistake today.
Right. It's
Right?
the worst. What you're seeing right now is the worst it will ever be.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I can see in the not too distant future it winding up taking a majority of the jobs in visual effects that are done by humans, at first in India and China, the sort of a low hanging fruit.
Mhm.
But I can see it over the next X number of years because, my crystal ball is broken and things, excuse me, change so quickly. I don't know when that time frame is,
Yeah.
but, Kurzweil says it so well. And I think at some point, most of the, if not all, actually, of the visual effects work will be done by generative AI.
Yeah. And that brings up a point. So I like the fact that you're saying from the bottom up and
Right.
in starting with the offshore companies. I also believe that those technology forward companies like India and China already see that writing in the wall and they're putting their money into AI and they may somehow lead the US in Hollywood in terms of the advancements of where it's all going. It's just a observation. But the other thing is, as you go up that food chain, let's say, I still believe that the storytelling aspect, the humanity, the creative spark, the innovation, the human innovation that prompts the software, and it is software. I haven't seen a robot in my 2 years of using it. It's software. I still think that's still going to be crucial. So, who are those people? Let's say 2, 3, 4 years from now. Won't they be the filmmakers? Won't they be the film editors? Won't they be the kind of the art directors, the set designers, just utilizing these tools? But you got to have a human centered, what I call a creative centered AI approach to Hollywood that I still will exist at that high level because you can't have the machines creating the stories and doing everything. I mean, they have to be directed, right?
Maybe. So let's look at the visual effects industry. So if we look at the visual effects industry over the history, at least since I've been in it, which is the mid 1980s, there have been a handful of visual effects people that have risen to become directors and core creative people. Several of them have failed miserably, even though they're world-class visual effects people. So if you say there's, I don't know, 20,000 people in the visual effects industry right now,
Mm-hmm.
how many of them are core creators? I've not seen it. My history book tells me there's a small percentage of those 20,000 visual effects workers that have the ability to become core creative people.
Yeah.
And so, sorry about that, Mr. Microphone.
Mm.
And so if we look at some of the visual effect of the work that's been done using AI, the work looks really great. I mean, and again, there's a lot of interaction with the human side of things, but the work looks really good. The problem is the stories suck. And so there's a disconnect.
You're seeing a lot of trailers.
Yeah. Yeah.
3-second clips, 6-second clips.
Some
Styles,
I'll play them for you if you'd like. I think I have them here, but it's there's no story, there is no passion, there is no character. There is just a shot of a guy riding a horse or somebody flying a plane or whatever. And so that's the issue with visual effects people. The reason why most visual effects people are visual effects people and not filmmakers is because they don't get that stuff.
Right.
And over the years, I've probably had thousands upon thousands of people that have worked for me between Industrial Light and Magic and Digital Domain. And, even the ones that think they're filmmakers and that even at the time I might have thought these people are filmmakers, turns out that given the reins, they can't do it.
Yeah. Right.
So, will we see visual effects people all of a sudden becoming great storytellers? History tells us no,
Mm.
no, they can't. There are very few Jim Camerons around that start in the visual effects industry and come out to be world-class directors. So I'm not sure that's really a possibility.
Right. So yeah, you're talking about the cream of the crop. How many movies are actually getting produced in a year now? Let's just say 100. So are there 100 directors at that level making some bombs and some hits? Right. But compared to the thousands of visual effects people and then the tens of thousands of AI filmmakers that are aspiring to be the next Spielberg, we'll see if that happens. But yeah, I get your math. I understand.
Kurt, there's an interesting program, and I forget what it's called, but it's taking place in China. And what the Chinese have done is they've opened up channels on the internet to allow artists or storytellers, that's a stretch, to be able to create 5-minute pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And these are not professionals. They are semi-pros at best. And they create these 5-minute pieces and they try to get a following.
Mm-hmm.
And once they get a following, now they can make more 5-minute pieces and actually charge for it. So there's an awful lot of failure.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know what the percentage is, but it's pretty high. There are very few that actually have the skill sets or the capability to be directors and storytellers. I think that we've seen that throughout history. We've seen that in Hollywood. We've seen that in publishing. We've seen that, we've seen that all over and all over again.
Yeah.
Printing, publishing.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure. Yeah. It's certainly a human spark that propels these storytellers that are successful to make them what they are. Right. And so that's a piece of humanity, a piece of creativity, the creative mind, the human mind, really brain cells being used for that success model. I believe that just like, MTV 81, right, created the opportunities for short form videos called music videos to suddenly become a thing. People
Sure.
were obsessed, right, with watching music videos 24 hours a day, became a new form of entertainment. Unfortunately, MTV doesn't even
Do that
show it,
anymore. Right.
right. But it became its own art form. And out of those directors, some
A
directors.
handful of them became great feature film directors.
Yes, yes. So I think we're in that stage where I believe AI filmmakers, quote unquote, storytellers, and it's all short form, but they may not make it to feature films, the technology wise or the talent wise, but they're doing some really interesting things in advertising. And advertising is an interesting playground to be fantastic in non sequitur, in effects driven, style driven,
Sure.
fantasy. It's like nothing makes sense, but it looks cool. And I'm selling a tennis shoe, right? It's like,
Sure.
who cares about the story, right? It's just about, wow, that was cool. That's a cool shoe. I'm going to go buy it. That's their KPI. So I believe this is channeling towards a new art form that might be well expressed in advertising. And I think that will be the dominion for many years. I think it's a long shot to think that feature films will be made by AI. I have yet to see how actors are truly integrated into this environment if they're not synthetic. But I still believe you have to have humans in these special effects driven by AI. I just haven't seen that integration yet.
Have you seen the new, what's it? Come on. I'm terrible with names. Bob Zemeckis film?
Oh no, I didn't. But yeah, the de-aging of Tom
About
Hanks.
Tom Hanks
Yeah.
and Robin. Yeah, I mean, here's the real question. We're old guys. And so I like a good story and I like good character. Like good plot development. It would be nice if there was some action scenes, but for me, it's mostly about telling a story and getting me engaged and moving my heart and spirit.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure that's the same as what are they called now? Generation Alpha, or, sort of
The alpha.
the ones beyond Generation Z.
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, could it be that the future are video games with characters and actors that are in it? Who knows? The video game market, as you know, is bigger than the movie market.
Yeah.
And so you couldn't convince me to play a video game. On the other hand, my 39-year-old son grew up in video games, and he spends an inordinate amount of time, even though he's a teacher, an inordinate amount of time playing video games. What's his kids going to do? So
Yeah.
it's tough for me as a 73-year-old guy to sort of define what the future might be like. So maybe they are these 3-minute pieces, 2-minute pieces. I don't know.
Yeah. I think there will be new forms of entertainment. I think it will be more immersive, more interactive, and different than whatever tradition Hollywood has generated over the last 120 years or so, or television has done over the last, I think, 80 years,
80
whatever.
years. Mhm.
I think that's a natural evolution. However, I believe that traditional storytelling still resonates to people of any age, because we all share emotions, right? That are similar. We cry, we laugh, we, relate, we see something and we relate to it as human beings, and so I think that will never go away. I'm sure you watched the new Bob Dylan movie and what a fantastic film, right?
Mhm.
Like, yeah, and that's special effects driven, and I'm pretty sick of Marvel movies. So there's also the pendulum swings between people loving special effects and people just going analog once again, looking for something authentic, and I think the younger generation is rebelling somewhat from all this technology. They're going back to flip phones instead of having smartphones. They're doing that on their own.
Hmm.
So I think that's an interesting trend to watch, because I think that gives us hope in our youth and hope in humanity, because any generation at any point could say, yeah, you baby boomers, you fucked it up for all of us. So we're going to be anti-technology, and not play video games and go outdoors. I think those are happening. We have a generation now that is not drinking, there's bars that are going out of business, and concert venues who used to make their money from the sale of alcohol, that they can't be profitable with people just listening to music in a club anymore. So these are interesting trends, right, to watch with these new generations coming up the ranks. So it gives me hope. I just became a grandfather,
Oh,
last year. So I,
congratulations.
I'm I'm hopeful for my granddaughter that she'll grow up in an environment, and her parents, my son and his wife, are very protective of the media exposure. She has not watched a TV yet. She has not interacted with the smartphone except maybe some FaceTime with the grandparents.
How old is she?
She's going to be 2 in April,
Mhm.
and she loves Big Bird, but she's only seen Big Bird not by watching Sesame Street, but by reading books. Okay,
Hmm.
so and that's a movement, right, towards less screen time for kids, and give them more traditional environments to grow up in. So I think at a certain point, the technology, the sensation dies down, and people will go analog again and discover nature again. And I think that's all important before our nature goes away for various reasons. So I think there's hope in the new generation.
I like your vision. Let's make a date and say your granddaughter
Granddaughter, yes.
is 2. So let's meet in 7 years when she's 9, assuming we're both around.
Yeah.
And I wonder what your son and your daughter-in-law will be able to do to control a 9-year-old's availability to technology and what it is she's going to do with it. So at 2 years old, it's pretty easy to contain, They're not, they really don't have the
All they're
facility.
controlling it,
That's right.
for all the right reasons.
Right.
Yeah,
And
no,
at some point,
yeah, at some point, but who knows? The peer pressure might be different, right, than it is today. I mean,
I
I
hope so.
I had to give my boys, phones, flip phones when they were, 9 and 10, back in the day. And maybe, I mean, a lot of kids aren't even driving these days.
I
You
know
know,
that's a different issue. That's a
yeah,
totally
I know,
different
but,
issue.
but you can see there's this generational shift of not embracing the way that we grew up. I mean, I couldn't wait to drive and get
Yeah.
my driver's license. I was riding a
Driver's license
motorcycle.
was the key to freedom.
Yes, freedom,
Right.
freedom to go out with your girlfriend.
Right.
What it's like, yeah, they go out in groups now. Some don't
Right.
even date, they
Right.
just so yeah, these are generational changes that's, I think are interesting to watch. So I don't think we should assume status quo moving forward over time, that things will progress into some digital age that, is accelerated because the technology accelerated. I think at some point there could be this rejection of everything technology wise, and they blame it on the boomers and they say, you know what, we're throwing the phone away and we're going to live in a trailer in the country and not be upwardly mobile or something.
It's funny. I have two grandchildren. This month they'll turn 8 and 12. And when I go out with their dad and their mom, the mom is my daughter,
Mhm.
we'll sit down at a table. And the first thing they do is pull out their little pads, their iPads,
Yeah.
plug in their headphones, bang, they're in.
And check it.
And if you try to take it away from them, it's World War III.
Yeah.
It's like,
See.
come on now, join the family. Come on, mom. So I think things will change. I'm not very positive about what the future might look like. I think the future is looking more and more bleak. And I think that generative AI will ultimately wind up taking the role and the jobs and the capabilities from humans. And have you read the Yuval Noah Harari's book, the latest one?
No.
It's pretty interesting. Where he's a pretty bright guy, and he talks about the fact that so many things will change as a result of generative AI, and that the world's going to be a totally different place. And in fact, there might be a totally different species.
Hmm.
The good news that he talks about
Mhm.
is that with generative AI, that nuclear weapons make no sense,
Mhm.
because with nuclear weapons, they can't function at all. So there's not going to be a false launching of missiles that are run by AI.
Mhm.
If you talk to Jim Cameron, and he did a little speech, and I suggest you take a look at it, he talks about the fact that that as AI becomes more and more integrated with robotic technology, that things are going to be very, very different, and not for the better. Because while we, let's say, because we think we're better than the rest, would give a directive towards our robots, for lack of a better term, that they should not be involved with warfare, that there are other countries that don't have that same sensibility. And so once that other country says, well, actually, we're sending our AI robots to go and attack Israel, for example, the Israelis, as we see, are not going to stand by. They're going to use their robots. And so, he said,
Broken dogs with machine guns on their.
that's right. That's
They're
right.
not
That's right.
human-like robots. It's like,
That's right.
what type of contraption is more efficient than human type
Right.
robots? Because dogs are it, it's like
Correct.
it's 4 legs instead of 2, and they're low, and they
And they
can
run
roll over,
fast.
and they can flip,
Right.
and right? I mean, so it's not necessarily iRobot, which is a movie you worked on, so
Correct.
it's
That's correct.
not necessarily that future, but yeah, no, there is a lot of scary things going on outside of AI in the world right now that I'm more scared of that than AI at this point. But that said, I am all about keeping it human centered as long as we possibly can, show our value as creatives, certainly with using this technology, and take that I think it's creative people that are going to take that technology to the next level. It can't just be everybody who
Sure.
has
Sure.
access to it. You know, I believe it's people who are trained, have decades of experience in doing whatever the craft is in the creative field, movie industry, whatever. But those are the people that are storytellers in a small way, in a large way, that will recognize them as tools and amplify and augment themselves and their competency and elevate the technology. I'm hopeful for that. I'm constantly reinforcing. Well, a human prompted that scene, so let's keep the human there. Creative centered AI is my motto. Let's keep it creative centered and elevate the platform and keep the human in the driver's seat.
From your lips to whoever it is, ears, I'd love to, I'd love that. That's a wonderful sort of thought and desire and goal. The question becomes, is it something that's going to happen? Right. So, I've seen, let's take the movie business, which is also going to change drastically. But if you look at the movie business, the people that are in charge of the finances of movies are always looking for cheaper, faster,
Yeah.
not necessarily better, cheaper, faster. And AI can make that happen. And there will be tasks that AI will be able to do that will be cheaper and faster than a human. And so you're going to see a lot of displacement of people that have been working in the industry that find themselves no longer capable or able to compete with an AI. And as I said, I think the first ones that go are China, India, all of the countries that provide low cost labor, they'll be the first to go. And ultimately, the question will become, will an AI entity be able to decide what is better in terms of a composite? Can they learn this? Can it learn the skills of a visual effects supervisor? And I contend it can.
Mhm.
It's a matter of analyzing success that has happened in the past and analyzing the failures, of which I think AI can do considerably more quickly than any human can do.
Oh yeah. Yes. There's speed, and then there's humanity, and it's not going to be the chief financial officer of Universal Pictures that's going to be making these movies. It's going to be a creative auteur in charge of them, a production company, a director. And so,
Do you see the possibility that it is no longer a creative auteur or a director, that in fact an AI would have the ability to model Steven Spielberg's choices, behaviors, decisions, etc., and that AI would have a similar skill set as Steven Spielberg? And if you're the studio, wouldn't you rather deal with the AI than with Steven and Frank and Kathy and those folks? It's a lot easier.
yeah, I, I don't want that future to happen. Yeah,
Well, neither do I, but we're unfortunately not in control of that.
I know, I know, I know. I, I believe that in the creative and art spirit, and I'm hoping that AI in the hands of great storytellers will prove that you still need those auteurs and leaders who can craft that story like, you know, machines can't.
From your lips to whoever's ears. I'll give you some. I've been spending a bit of time in China over the last 6 months, and I was in Shanghai, and there was a conference that was all about sort of the future of art and technology and whatnot. And there was this one guy, I, I want to say he was from Portugal,
Mm,
and he had trained this robotic illustrator on a giant piece of canvas
mhm,
where the memory and the background that was in the computer was all learned based on this guy's capabilities and drawings.
mhm,
And you would be able to go over and say, so could you create a drawing about, fill in the blank? And it had a robotic arm and whatnot. So the robot would be able to create in the style of the guy who put data input
Yep.
in the exactly what it was you were saying. Can you create the Saturn's rings, but do it in a way, whatever it was capable of doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shocking.
Okay. Yeah.
Shocking.
It's happening. So here we are, two old Hollywood guys trying to hold on to what's left of the humanity in the entertainment industry. It's an interesting time that we live, right? So tell me about your book. Let's talk about your book in the last 2 minutes here, because it represents a lifetime pretty much, I'm sure.
Sort of backwards there, right? Isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah. No, you're not.
The digital film revolution, or managing the unmanageable.
Yeah.
Whoa, it's like microphones. And I decided to take the approach of not writing a business book per se, which most of the publishers that I spoke to wanted me to write a business book. And I wound up reading Cassidy Hutchins, I think is her name. She wrote a book about her time working for Mark Meadows in the White House.
Mm-hmm.
And I found the most interesting parts of that was her conflict within herself. And it was less interesting, though there was some interesting parts about the way in which Mark Meadows reacted, the way in which Donald Trump reacted. But the real interesting thing was, who was this woman and why did she do the things that she did? And what were the obstacles she came across? And so when I wrote the book, I decided to write it from that perspective.
Interesting.
And I wound up taking the manuscript to various publishers. And most of the publishers said the same thing. They said, you're not Barack Obama, you're not Arnold Schwarzenegger, you're not a famous person. And so people really aren't interested in your story. They're going to be interested in, the effect that the internet had, or the effect that digital compositing had on the movie business. And they're going to want to know from a business perspective what worked and what didn't work.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, that's not the book I want to write.
Right.
I want to write a book about a revolution that took place that I was in the middle of, at times at the head of, and at times beheaded by, people who are more powerful or meaner or whatnot than me. And, the wrinkles came, for sure because of the trials and tribulations that I faced. And so I wrote that book, and so far the responses that I'm getting, at least on the internet, have been, on Amazon in particular, have been really, really positive, only 5 stars. So I'm not sure I'll be able to reach the audience I want to reach, because I decided sort of to self-publish, to work with a self-publisher.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm probably in it now for $15,000 of time, effort, energy, editing, et cetera. And I'm not sure I'll ever make that money back, but I didn't do it for the money. I did it to be able to A, tell the truth, and B, hopefully inspire people, and C, set the record straight as to what it was like when that all happened. And I'm getting really positive responses.
Yeah, the human toll, the human story, really the humanity in the digital world. I think it's a great perspective. So I'm going to buy that book, and
please do.
And maybe someday you'll sign it if we ever meet up again. But
I'm happy to. Where are you living now?
I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Oh, lucky you.
Yeah, no, we love it. We've been about 8 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So congratulations on the book. And yeah, it takes courage to self-publish, but the fact is it's out there, right?
And the book is called Upstart, right? And it's available on Amazon and multiple platforms. And I tried to price it relatively inexpensively. I think this is $17.95.
Hardback?
No, this is the
soft
paperback.
Okay. Yeah. Very nice.
And I hope people, read it that are in the industry and not in the industry, and people that are, in the new industries, and understand what it takes to be able to sort of power through. And I'm very honest, I stand there naked, and the mistakes that I made, and, the victories that I won. And I'm hoping the victories are more than standing naked, because, at my age, I'm not that pretty standing naked.
Yeah, I mean, Hollywood's a tough town.
Yeah.
And you're a pioneer and a survivor, and you've documented it now. in your book. It's your story, and I think that's great. So
Thanks, Curt.
congratulations. And what other projects that you got going now that you have the book out of the way?
Well, I'm still like sort of fostering the book. So I'm doing a book signing down at Book Soup in West Hollywood in a couple of weeks. And I'm trying to do speaking engagements. I also sit on the boards of a couple of companies
Okay.
and international companies. And I'm learning to get better at playing saxophone.
Fantastic. Okay.
And I live in Santa Barbara, which is lovely. And I do stupid things like try to play golf, which I'm not very good at. And I do speaking engagements. And, my life is very, very full. In some ways, it's actually it's definitely more busy than it was even when I was running Digital Domain, because I had such incredible support at Digital Domain. And right now it's just, you're looking at it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, congratulations. And thanks so much for being a guest on my little podcast here.
Sure. My pleasure.
We reach, a number of people who are interested in AI. I know who my audience is, and they watch and listen. And so honored to have had you be a guest because
Thanks a
of
lot.
your background and perspective to help navigate, this tricky path between creativity, which is human, and technology and AI, which is not human. And here's this human brain in the center. It's like, how do we manage all this stuff and try to have great outcomes, right?
Yeah, I'd like you and your audience to take a listen to my ex-partner, James Cameron's take on artificial intelligence and what he sees as the future of it.
You know what? I'm going to clip that up and put it on my channel. So
yeah, I think that your audience will love it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I want to have you back maybe in 9 years for that date we talked about, right?
There you go.
And-
I'll be what? I'll be 82.
Hello, Curt. How are you? Young 82. And listen, thanks to all of you for tuning in, and catch more of our RealmIQ sessions on your favorite podcast platforms. Please follow and smash that subscribe button. And you can also follow us on TikTok and LinkedIn and now Blue Sky, 30 million followers.
Yeah,
It's a real thing. It's a real thing. And thanks again, Scott. I really appreciate you and your contributions and agreeing to do this little conversation with me.
Thanks, Curt. It's good to see you after all these years. You haven't changed a bit.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
RealmIQ. Transform your business with AI-driven innovation.
Subscribe to our Media Slam newsletter and learn more about the intersection of design, content, and technology.
CurtDoty.co. Branding, marketing, and product development.